Okay, hello everyone, it's Salar and we are in part 45 of our tutorial to writing a real-time operating system. In previous part, I talked about supervisor call exception, an exception in ARM, Cortex-M core, and I talked about exclusive access, atomic access, okay, and I said we will use SVC and exclusive access to implement our real-time operating system. Okay, but in this part and from this part, I want to start to talking about system call structure. I want to get into system call structure. Okay, but what is system call? So what is system call? System call, as I've written here, is a function. System call is a function that can be used to get a service from RTOS or kernel. By using this function system call, you can send a request to the kernel or to the RTOS. For example, threadCreateNew is a function and is a system call. Like previous part, I said by using a threadCreateNew, you can create a new thread. Okay? This function and some arguments. Okay? So this function is a system call, and by using of this function, you can send a request to kernel. Now, to talking about system call structure, now I want to use an RTOS that has just one system call. Okay, just has one system call, and the system call is threadCreateNew, a simple form of RTOS. By using of a simple form of RTOS, I wanted to talk about the structure of system call in the RTOS. Okay, and this RTOS support priority as priority list, as I said in previous parts. Okay, so if you check the repository of project under commit number 9, I've updated my project and I've added an RTOS and simple RTOS to the repository. Initial addition of RTOS under this commit. This version of RTOS just have one system called threadCreateNew. By using this initial version, I want to talk about system call structure. Okay, in the repository of OpenTouch project, you can see RTOS directory, and in the RTOS directory we have two subdirectories, include some header files and some source files. Okay, by using a threadCreateNew, I want to talk about the structure of system call in the RTOS and its files. But here is the structure of header files in the RTOS. Okay, I will talk about these files in this part and future parts. Okay, for example, all global types defined in this header file. RTOS type definitions.h. RTOS type definitions.h. Okay, or those types that's related to system call defined in this file. All of functions that's related to data structures, defined in list.h. Kernel functions defined in kernel.h. Those functions that relate to ports defined to port.h, and user functions, those functions that will be used by users defined in this function, defined in this header file. Okay, but in this part we will see this header file, and this source file. Okay, system call declared in this function, in this file. Okay, but a structure of system call, this is a process. When you call a system call, RTOS does this process to get a service to you. Okay, at this moment I want to talk about threadCreateNew. Okay, one of system calls. The system calls called user space system call. Okay, we have another threadCreateNew, but here threadCreateNew system calls, this is kernel space system call. But talking about system call structure, I want to start with user space system call threadCreateNew, this function. Okay, I want to start to talking about this function. Okay, in future parts I will talk about and I will describe all of these parts. Okay, but at the first time, what does user space system call do? For example, what does threadCreateNew do? Okay, user space system call, one of user space system call in our RTOS, threadCreateNew. This function, user space system call, collect arguments, these arguments. Okay, arguments of system call, collect arguments of threadCreateNew in struct, okay, and call kernel system call. Okay, collect all of these arguments and after that call kernel system call, this function. Okay, but let's to see in thread.c this system call. As you know, I have user space system call here. Okay, and at the bottom of this system call I have kernel space system call, threadCreateNew system call. Okay, this function, I will talk about this function in future parts. I will talk about this function kernel space system call in future parts. Okay, but at this time I want to talk about user space system call, threadCreateNew. All of user space system calls defined here, RTOS.h. Okay, but at this time we have just one system call in our RTOS, threadCreateNew. Okay, end users uses these functions. Okay, as you can threadCreateNew, RTOS start, RTOS initialize, RTOS start, threadCreateNew. All of user space system calls defined will be defined in this file, RTOS.h. RTOS.h. Okay, and when you want to use the kernel and use RTOS, you must include this header file in your code. Okay, RTOS.h. So let's back to the thread.h and talking about thread create new user space system call. First, check arguments. Okay, for example, you can send a null function pointer to create a new thread, or your priority must be smaller than number of priority levels. Okay, and you can't create a thread that its priority is idle. Okay, and for a stack size you have a limitation, you have a limit. Okay, thread maximum stack size. Okay, first check some arguments. Okay, after that you can't call this system call from interrupt. If you call the system call from interrupt, system call return a null. But here is so important. Here is so important. Let's describe this part here. First, the RTOS, by using of user space system call, put all of arguments in first structure. This structure, thread create new args, contains all of arguments. Okay, each member for each of arguments and one return value, one member for return value. Okay, but as you can see, members of this structure is thread name, thread function pointer, thread function parameter. I will talk about function parameter in future parts. Thread priority and thread stack size. Name, function pointer, function parameter, priority, stack size. Name, function pointer, function parameter at this time is null, priority, and stack size. Okay, by using of thread create new, RTOS first put arguments in this struct, but this struct has been defined here in include system call type definitions. I said all of definitions that relate to system call defined in this function, defined in this header file. Okay, for example, for thread create new, you have a structure here. Okay, this structure defined here. Okay, and a type created by using of this structure. Okay, so here is thread create new arg, but this struct called specific struct. Okay, this struct called specific structs. A specific struct. Another time in thread.c, you can see this function puts all of these arguments in a struct. Thread create new arg. Okay, thread create new arg. This is a specific struct. Okay, there is a specific structure. Okay, put all of arguments, function pointer, function parameter, priority, and stack size in this struct. Okay, after that put this structure in another structure. this structure called global structure. Okay, for each of the system calls you need to have one of these structures. Okay, but you just have one global structure. Okay, its member is system call number and a specific system call arg. Okay, a specific system call arg. And second structure, global structure, defined here, defined in include but RTOS type definitions, because this is a global structure. This structure is here. Let's find that here. Okay, kernel system call arg, specific system call arg, and system call number. Okay, here is a global structure. This is a structure called global structure. Back to thread.c. Okay, after collecting all of arguments in a specific structure, you must put address of this specific structure at this member in addition of system call number, and add and insert system call number in this member. Okay, in the first member. For each of let's see at this time here. You can see in open this project RTOS include another time system call type definitions here. I have a system call number for create new system call. Okay, I will add other system call numbers to this file in future parts, but at this time, at this moment, RTOS just has one system call, threadCreateNew, and for each of system calls you need to have one system call number. Okay, you can see in thread.c this function first collect all of arguments in a specific structure and put address of a specific structure at this member of global structure defined here, in addition of a system call number. Okay, and call kernel system call by using of global structure. Okay, this process is almost common in all of user space system calls. You must collect all of arguments in a specific structure and put this structure in addition of a system call number in global structure, and send address of global structure to kernel system call and call this function. Okay, to get a service from kernel. At this time the service is creating a new thread, and you can't call this system call from interrupt. If you call from interrupt, return value is null. Otherwise, after creating a new thread, return value is address of the ID of this new thread. Okay, the ID of new thread is return value. So to have and if you want to add a new system call to your RTOS, a new system call, first you must define the user space system call here. okay, in this file. After that, in the system call type definitions.h, in this header file, you must create a system call number for that system call, add a new system call number for that system call, and create a specific data structure for that system call, and you must define a kernel space system call. I will talk about kernel system call in future parts. Okay, so another time, here is process of system call. First, you must call user space system call, and in user space system call, first this function collects all of arguments to a specific data structure, a specific struct, and put address of a specific struct in addition of a system call number to global struct, first collect arguments in a specific struct, after that address of a specific struct in addition of a system call number to global struct, add these members, after that call kernel system call, and argument of kernel system call is address of global structure. So here was first part of system call structure and system call process in the RTOS. In the next part, I will talk about next step, kernel system call function. Okay, in the next part. So, very good. Thank you very much to see me, and see you soon in the next part.